It's time for another framework aside. Let's talk a bit about white space. Okay. Big word alert. White space. Invisible characters that create literal space in your written code, like carriage returns, tabs, or spaces. They make your code more readable. But, of course, that's not what's really being executed on the computer system. But we can use whitespace to help ourselves. And JavaScript, its syntax parser, is very liberal about what it allows when it comes to whitespace. And we can take advantage of it to help ourselves out in our written code. For example, let's say I have a few variables that I'm declaring in my code, and maybe I have another one that's an object literal. And then I'll just output this person, for example. So when I run this code, there's my object, and I've declared some variables. That's nice. If I come back to this a long time later, or some other developer is working on it, it's good for me to put in comments so that others can understand more easily what the code is that I've written, or I myself can figure it out if it's been a while. JavaScript is very liberal about whitespace, so I could put comments, for example, between the var and the first name by just putting some carriage returns. The syntax parser sees these double slashes and ignores everything until it hits the next line. The rest of this is just completely ignored by the JavaScript engine. So I could put extra space there. I'm just gonna some sample comments, and I could have a couple of comments here. And so I can use whitespace very liberally to clarify my code. I can even do it inside an object literal syntax. So I might do this, and maybe I just want to make a note. Let's run this. Still runs the same, because the code that's executed is exactly the same as the code that was executed the first time. The syntax parser just ignored all this whitespace. When you crack open the source code of some famous libraries and frameworks, you'll see a lot of usage of whitespace and a lot of usage of comments. And it can be a little off-putting. It can throw you off a bit at first when you see just this line hanging out there with a comma, and another line a ways later. Maybe there's a lot of comments explaining. Then a big bunch of comments again, and just another line hanging out by itself. But don't be intimidated by that. Don't be thrown off. Just realize that if you back up and take a good look at the characters that the JavaScript engine will actually care about, in the end, this is just a simple list of variables being declared, and this is just a simple object literal. But the programmer is taking advantage of how liberal JavaScript is with accepting whitespace to teach us something. So again, when you see this kind of thing, when you look at the source code of some complex JavaScript, be thankful. That means you have a lot of comments that can help you understand it. And don't get bogged down by the whitespace itself. All right. One other thing. You should do this. As much as you can, comment up your code. Make your code readable. Make your code understandable. You won't regret it in the future. All right, let's move on.